It's well known in diplomacy circles that Italy has the lowest win percentage of all 7 nations. Nevertheless, a diplomacy world champion, Chris Brand, soloed as Italy to get to the World Finals, and then won his title playing as Italy. Today, he's going to teach us how we can win as Italy, here on Legendary Tactics. In a diplomacy draft system, Italy is often chosen last because it's perceived to be the hardest nation to play. But recently, Italian players have been having success, and there's been a renaissance in how this nation is played. At the DBNI's Invitational, Italy took the win on the top board.
The DBN Diplomat of the Year is Mr. Peter McNamara.
So today, we're talking strategy with Chris Brand, who won the North American Dipcon and World Championship in 2016. Thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
So I am completely shocked that you managed to win a world championship with Italy. We'll have to circle back to that conversation at the end of the interview, but just wonder if you could give us a little quick snapshot of how you managed to pull that off.
That was very much a question of managing the relationship with France, such that we more or less left each other alone and agreed to sort of race to as many dots as we could. That doesn't last through the mid game, but you know, it's a good starting point for both of us. And then lots of messing around in the east. I think I stabbed Austria at least twice, maybe 3 times, and a lot of it came down to timing though on that one, to be honest. France and I were both doing very well and both could have got there. We were sort of neck and neck, and it was the way the game worked was we knew it was going to end between such and such a time and another time, but we didn't know when during that time period. And I happened to be ahead at the time. So,
Well, that foreshadows some of the questions I have that we'll answer today, and help
yes.
newer players and hopefully some veterans to understand how to play these guys better. So when I first learned that I've drawn Italy, I have to confess that I think, great, now I can be the sad sack who gets crushed between Austria and France, and then I'll end up with a single unit hanging out in Tunis that may or may not be useful to the board leader. This probably isn't the same feeling you have given your background, but what are your major goals and how do you approach Italy from the outset?
Well, to help you out a little bit, I used to feel the same way about Italy. As I got better at the game, I started to like, first of all, Austria became my favorite country, but then as I got better, I think Italy sort of became my little niche there.
Wow.
Yes. And that's partly because as I learned how to play Italy better, I became less of a proponent that Austria and Italy should always be allied. So therefore my Austrian game suffers, because when I was playing Austria, I was like, oh, I just have to ally with Italy and everything's good. So, yeah, so I think the main thing is Italy. Once upon a time, you very much used to, Italy wasn't really an Eastern power or a Western power. And you would see a lot of people would take Tunis and let the 3 Western powers fight it out and let the 3 Eastern powers fight it out. And then sort of some winners emerge on both sides, and then they would come and take your dots, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And as you say, if you were lucky, you got one left in Tunis and you're on the stalemate line, and you can sort of survive to the draw on 1. But that's not really what we want to do.
No, you've just described a game I'm playing right now.
So I was watching your interview with Doug Moore, and one of the things he said about Germany is absolutely true of Italy as well. Is about be decisive. And one of the things I say, if you're playing Italy, what you've got to do right at the start, even before you talk to anyone in spring 1901, is get an idea of where your 5th dot is coming from. The 4th one's obvious. The 4th one's Tunis, right?
It's very clear.
But where is your 5th dot? And it's not really particularly about that dot in itself. It's about picking a direction and actually doing something, being decisive, as Doug says. So whether you're going to attack Austria, or you're going to go and kill Turkey, or you're going to go west into France, or maybe you're going to go and take Munich, you know, you've got to, there's a whole load of possible 5th dots out there. You've got to sort of pick one, or, I mean, if you're going west, then maybe it's either Marseille or Spain, it doesn't really matter, but you know, you've got to have an idea of what you're going to be doing, have a plan, and stick with it. Don't. The other thing you see Italian players sometimes do is, oh, I'll go east. Oh no, that's not really working. I'll go west. Oh no, that's not really working. And then you end up in that same situation as if you didn't go anywhere in the first place. So
that's right. It sounds like Greece might be a viable option.
Yeah, I like Greece as a center. Yeah, particularly if you're going to take out Turkey, I would often rather agree with Austria that I get Greece and they get the Turkish dots than that I actually end up with a unit right the way out in Smyrna, because it's kind of out of place there. But if I can get all of Turkey, then I'm quite happy with that. But
That's right. But better not to overextend too far and then be cut off in the middle by Austria.
Yeah, you've always got to be aware that if you push out too far in one direction, whether it's you send everything west, then you're going to be your dots that become very attractive to Austria, right? And if you go all the way east into Turkey, then France is looking at it and going, well, there's 4 dots there that I can pretty much walk into. You know? So
absolutely, yeah.
You've got to always be aware that you're playing both sides of the board. You're not an Eastern power and you're not a Western power. You're in the middle there on that stalemate line.
Very good. And it sounds like it's good to have a friend on one side and a foe on the other, perhaps.
You want as many, diplomacy, you want as many friends as possible.
Right. Yeah.
But you need a target. Yeah, you definitely need someone who you're going to be attacking.
Okay. So one conversation that we usually have to have with powers is about strategy, tactics, and diplomacy. What order would you rank these in for importance when it comes to Italy?
Yeah, they're always all important. But I think one of the key things with Italy that's different to most of the other powers is that right in spring 1901, you have things to talk about with absolutely everyone on the board. I mean, the least relevant person to talk to is probably Russia, but you've got immediate things to talk about with France and Italy and Turkey and Germany and even England, because what's happening in the West is France the odd man out in the West, and things like that. And you do have things to talk about with Russia as well, about whether they were interested in attacking Turkey or whether they want to go in on Austria. You've got to figure out whether there's a Russia-Turkey alliance, things like that. So you really do have to do your job as a diplomat and talk to everyone. Find out how the West is going to play out. Who's the odd person out in the West? Is there an RT? Is this going to be an RT? In which case, maybe you need to ally with Austria so that you can balance that out. If Russia and Turkey are going to be fighting, then you have a lot more freedom in the East. You can sort of pick and choose which way you want to play that. So,
well, that makes us 3 for 3 then on diplomacy being the most important for Austria, Germany, and Italy in the 3 interviews I've done. So for our listeners, there's something important. Diplomacy is right up front.
So they don't call the game strategy or tactics.
That's right. Exactly. Fair point. So I'd like to suggest, and you've already hinted at your answer for this, but I'd like to suggest that Italy's natural ally in the early game is Russia, and Russia and Italy versus Turkey and Austria seem to be very, very well matched. I think we could say the same about England, that they can help with taking on France. Do you like to work with either Russia or England? Do you have a preference?
I do like both of those. I mean, those are both in the nice situation where you've got you're not immediate neighbors. You've got someone else in between who you can both attack from each side, and it's very hard to defend if you've got people attacking you from both sides.
That's right.
I would say though that my most common way of playing Italy is probably to ally with France from the start, but it's not so much an offensive alliance. Like an alliance with England would be, okay, we're going to go and attack France together. An alliance with France would be, we're going to leave each other alone. You go and play in the West and get as many dots as you can in the West. I'm going to play in the East and get as many dots as I can in the East, and we'll sort of race to St. Petersburg.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a fair division. So my question, which follows then, is in terms of France, Germany, or Austria, you prioritize France then in terms of securing peace?
Usually, yes. Every game is different, honestly, and you've got to assess the people. If you've got England and Germany coming to you right at the start saying, hey, we really want to go and kill France, and we're going to do it whether you join in or not, then that's a great situation to be in, because you can either go in and attack France right from the start, or you can sort of be ready to go in but wait for France to invite you in, because it's always nice if you have someone say, come and send your units my way, and I hate these 2 guys, so I'd much rather you take my dots than them take my dots. I always like to be invited into dots rather than have to actually force my way into them.
Yes, that could be a really good secret that you're sharing here today. It seems like there's 4 main options for Italy. Number 1, and the one that you seem to prefer, is attacking Austria. Number 2, you could head for France. Number 3, you could head for Turkey. Number 4 is be everyone's friend and wait. What order would you rank these in? And yeah, I guess what are your thoughts on that?
I would be a little hesitant about saying attacking Austria, because the one thing you've got to be very careful of there is if Russia and Turkey ally together, that's probably not a wise move. You probably want Austria to stay alive in that case, because it's easier for Russia and Turkey to take the Austrian dots than you, and any that you do gain are probably only temporary if Russia and Turkey are allied. Having said that, if Russia and Turkey are fighting, then those Austrian dots are very nice to have, and they're nice and close, they're nice and easy, and you can secure a lot of them. So yeah, again, it comes down to that diplomacy and figuring out what the situation is with the other players on the board.
Right, so beware the juggernaut.
Definitely beware the juggernaut, yes.
Very good.
In
so
fact, that's one of your main things in 1901, is try and figure out what the, what are Russia and Turkey thinking about the juggernaut? How do they like each other? Do they hate each other?
Yes, that sounds important. I think we better talk about openings. One of the most popular Italian openings is a very aggressive Obriani opening, with Army Rome going to Venice, Fleet Naples to the Ionian, and Army Venice up to Tyrolia. That always surprises Germany and Austria. And I think this one is used to support an attack on Austria, or even to take a shot at Germany. What are your thoughts on this opening, and or what openings would you recommend?
I do like opening to Tyrolia, I must admit. I mean, as Italy, the fleet is going to the Ionian almost in every game, maybe the Tyrrhenian, but 99 times out of 100, I would say you're going to the Ionian.
Yes.
The army has got 3 places it can go. You can go to Piedmont if you're going west, or if you just want to mess with France a bit and give them a bit of a guess there and see if you can stop them from taking Spain. You can go to Tyrolia, which is a really nice place to be because it's next to 3 other people's home centers. So, and you can also go to Trieste, and it's always nice if you get invited into Trieste. Again, you can certainly arrange with Austria that you get Trieste to allow you to get that either to keep the fleet in the Ionian or push it east earlier, or so that you get an extra build.
That takes a lot of trust from the Austrian.
It does, but it seems to be fairly common recently, actually. It's not at all unusual for Austria to actually say, hey, Italy, I want to be friends with you. Come and take Trieste and we'll go and attack Turkey together.
Right.
And I'm going to be very open to that because I want to take Trieste. Trieste is on my list of 18 anyway, so I want to take it sooner or later. And as I say, it's always nicer to be invited into a dot than have to force your way in.
Well, absolutely. And of all the centers on the board, the only 2 home centers that are beside each other are those 2. So that's a natural tension through the entire game. So if you can solve it right away, although then once you're in Trieste, then you're right next to 2 other Austrian home centers. So maybe that doesn't solve the problem, makes it worse.
Well, that's where the Rome army comes in. If Rome follows up to Venice, either with Venice going to Tyrolia or to Trieste, then Austria is probably going to be worried by that because you're sending both those armies more towards Austria than anywhere else. And then you've got supported attacks on Trieste, or you can push yourself up towards Vienna and things like that. And Austria is going to be worried by that. So the other alternative is to send Venice down to Apulia, where it can be convoyed across by the fleet, either to Tunis, which the difficulty with that, it's nice in that it leaves the fleet in place rather than the fleet going to Tunis and then having to come back to the Ionian.
That's right.
But you can end up with that army stranded in Tunis. I've seen Italians never actually be able to convoy the army back where they really could use it for defense.
Yeah, it's a problem when you're thinking that you have to have that army killed in order to teleport them back home eventually.
Yes, exactly.
That does set up for the Lepanto too, I guess. So some players might see that coming once that army's down in Tunis.
Yes, for sure.
I have to confess, and I'm not a good Italian player, so listeners out there, please don't listen to me, listen to Chris. But I like the Alpine opening, so where Venice goes to Piedmont. And so then you can end up, as you say, taking a stab at Marseille, taking a stab at Trieste, and you can take Tunis with your fleet. Is this wise, or should I reconsider this opening?
It's definitely not. It's definitely a reasonable move. This is one of the things where I've had long discussions with some of the other top players out there. Doug Moore in particular, he loves to send, if he's playing Italy, he loves to go west as Italy. And, I'm not going to criticize Doug Moore and say, no, you're making horrible mistakes when you do that. It's definitely doable. I think there are 3 fairly easy dots for you to pick up there. There's Marseille, Spain, and Portugal that you can get. You do want to get that fleet over the stalemate line at some point, and if you're going to get 18, you're going to want those French dots. At least you're going to want Iberia and Marseille for sure. So sooner or later you're going to be going that way earlier. You can do it early. I like having the piece with France, because the worry with me is if you end up in a battle with France, it's very easy for that just to escalate. You both get 2 fleets into the Mediterranean, and then you both throw a 3rd fleet into the Mediterranean, and then you both throw a 4th fleet into the Mediterranean. And none of you are getting anywhere. You're just tying up all those units there. Meanwhile, everyone else is going, well, I can take those dots because there's nothing on the other side.
That's right. You've opened yourself up to that, and it's apparent to everyone.
Yeah, so that's my worry with attacking France. But if you can do it, and you can pick up, if you're confident you can pick up Marseille or Spain in 01 or 02, then I'm not going to tell you don't do it. It's a mistake. Right. The problem is if you go that way and then find that you can't pick up those dots.
True, although it's a bit of a win-win, because you either get Marseille or France does not get Spain.
Yeah, there is that the guesswork where if you're open to Piedmont, then France doesn't know whether you're going to Marseille or not. So they either have to cover it or risk leaving it open to you. So yes, if you think you can just outguess France, then absolutely go for it.
Very good. So we're to the part of the discussion where we better talk about the Lepanto. Any discussion of Italy needs to discuss that. So I've always felt, for me, it requires a little too much trust from Austria. It takes too long to execute. Your units are committed in a really thin line across the Mediterranean, and it's really easy to be countered by an observant Turkey or by an aggressive France. So it feels really high risk, low reward to me. Do you agree with this assessment, or is the Lepanto something you would consider using?
It really comes down to Russia. What I don't want to end up is the AI versus RT thing, because that's very much the same sort of situation where it's not quite as stalemated as the fleets in the Med against France, but it's still a situation where, barring lucky guesses on one side or the other, you can be sat like bumping against each other for an awfully long time doing that and not making any progress. If Russia is going in against Turkey as well, and you've agreed, we'll take 1 Turkish dot each and everything will be wonderful, then and they actually follow through with that, of course, then that's a very nice situation to be in, because Turkey and France are your 2 rival fleet powers in the Mediterranean. Austria only having the 1 coastal home center, they can't build a lot of fleets. In fact, you often go through the whole game and don't see Austria build another fleet at all. Yep. Whereas France has got Marseille, and then also Brest is not very far from the Mediterranean, and Turkey, of course, can build fleets in all 3 centers, and then none of them are very far from the Mediterranean. So you often find that in the later game, mid-game and late game, you're competing for that naval dominance of the Mediterranean with France or Turkey. So if you can kill Turkey off early, that's 1 less person to worry about there, and your fleets can, you've got control of the Mediterranean. You just have to worry about keeping France out. Hopefully you've done that diplomatically. They're sending all their fleets north against England or something. So you've got control of all the Mediterranean and all the provinces, all the centers that are adjacent to the Mediterranean as a result of that. Right?
That sounds like very sound advice. I like that. I think we better shift to discussing some of the strengths and the built-in advantages of Italy, such as its defensibility from land assaults. You can see an attack coming from a mile away. It's also a nation that you can choose the order of your targets more so than the other nations. Are there any other strengths that you'd like to address that a savvy Italian player can take advantage of?
One of the things we mentioned right at the start is that Italy is never one of the first people out. Right? Italy is going to survive into the mid game almost every game.
That's right. Yeah.
And as long as you're alive, you're still in the game. You really want to be alive on 5 rather than alive on 2 or 1. But the fact that you can sort of take a longer vision, you don't have that sort of immediate focus. A lot of the time you're playing Turkey or you're playing Austria, and the way the game evolves is like, I'll be happy if I can survive to the end of 1902.
Right. Yes.
You're never going to be in that situation as Italy. You're going to survive to the end of 1902.
Yes. Oh, that's fair. That's a good way to look at it.
I hesitate with never, because there's always that one weird game.
That's fair. where Austria and
Almost
France
never, let's say.
both decide to take you on
Exactly.
at once. Yeah,
So, there's got to be a game somewhere where that's happened.
yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, you're right that people really do need fleets to attack Italy. I laughed a little bit when you said that, because I was playing a gunboat game not that long ago as Italy, and France managed to conquer Italy by moving armies through Piedmont and marching them down.
Oh,
and I
wow,
was just
nice.
positioned wrongly and couldn't do anything about it. But so it does happen. But yes, you're very defensible against a land attack.
I think one other advantage is that everybody can go a different way. They don't have to come through Italy in order to fight with each other. Even Turkey can go through Austria first if they choose. So,
yeah, you're no one's first problem for sure. That kind of ties in with the survivability thing, right? People are going to think about Italy later.
That's right.
Speaking.
And so that's
at
where
least as a target.
You're right. So your diplomacy comes in there, where if you can redirect them at each other, then you can sneak in the back way. So
yeah, exactly. And you can help them out, right? You know, oh, you want to go and attack Austria? Sure, we can do that. You know?
Absolutely. So let's move beyond into the mid game, beyond the early game. How do you grow past 5 dots, or where are you thinking here? Like, do you ever turn your thoughts now towards Germany, or?
I have a little bit of a reputation for taking Munich as my 5th dot on occasion.
Really nice. Okay.
It's not so much with the intent of keeping it. It's more as a stepping stone to something else. It messes up the West a lot.
Okay.
And this is one of the things, sort of taking a bit of a broader picture. As Italy, you have a lot of control over the sort of speed of the game and the flow of the game as a whole. Because you're sort of on that stalemate line, you can play on both sides. If you decide that France is going to die very quickly, you know, if England and Germany are okay with that and you're on board, then you can kill France very quickly with the 3 of you. That then resolves the West very quickly, and the East is probably still a mess, particularly as you weren't in there. So, yeah, you can sort of change the pacing of the game and change the flow of the game. And similarly, like I say, if you go up into Munich, you mess up Germany's game. Germany's kind of on the defensive, and you're probably forming an EF as a result of that. You have a lot of sort of indirect control over some of the other powers. And yeah, this is where you can sort of start to think very sort of Machiavellian and start to sort of manipulate people into doing what you want. What you've got to figure out is which of those things help you.
That's right.
And that's where you've got to have that focus on where are your 18 dots.
How do you take it from say 12 dots up to the 18? Where do you tend to get your centers from?
I mean, one of the advantages that Italy has is that you're very close to that major stalemate line. I don't know how experienced your viewers are. There's a stalemate line runs diagonally across the center of the board, basically, for sort of Spain, Portugal, Marseille up to St. Petersburg, with a little bit of variation as to whether it's Tunis or whether it's Moscow and Warsaw. And there's 17 centers on either side, depending on exactly where it ends up. So as Italy, if you can get a fleet up into the mid-Atlantic, then you are more or less across that stalemate line, and you've got control of some centers on the far side of that stalemate line. So then there's the 17 centers on your side of the stalemate line, plus you only need 1 on the far side of the stalemate line, right?
Right. So which one are you eyeing up?
It's very hard to say. It really does depend on the game. I mean, Italy, you've got a lot of options for that 18 centers. And in some ways, getting across that getting those fleets out into the Atlantic earlier gives you the opportunity to not be stuck on the eastern side of the stalemate line. You've got your natural 4 home centers. There's another 5 in France, is 9. You can take England, is 12, and then you're not up against the stalemate line at that point, right?
Brilliant. Because you're half on each side.
Yes, exactly. Half those centers are on either side of the stalemate line. And then you just have to pick up Trieste and Greece and maybe the lowlands, and you're there, right? You know, maybe you'll play. One of the reasons for going for Munich from the start is because, again, Munich is on that stalemate line. You can get an army into Munich and then get it out the other side of Munich, up north into Ruhr or into Kiel or Berlin or Burgundy. Then again, you've got to cross that stalemate line, and you started to get some influence over some dots on the other side of the stalemate line. I've taken Warsaw as my 5th dot once, at least once, sending the armies up through Tyrolia and Bohemia and Silesia and then into Warsaw.
Oh, very
And
nice.
Warsaw was literally my 5th dot because, again, Warsaw wasn't quite over the stalemate line. But if you start off with Italy and Tunis and Warsaw, you can fill in the 18 pretty easily from there.
Wow, it really sounds like you have a very aggressive play style as Italy, going up the middle, doing what people aren't expecting. Do you think that's part of your success?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's a do or die sort of thing, you know.
Right.
It's not always successful, but it's always fun, and when it does work, it is successful.
But it's better than languishing down in the south and just hanging out waiting to die.
Yeah, exactly. And the last thing you want to do, as I say, is take Tunis and then sit there and wait and see what happens.
That's right.
Do not do that as Italy.
Is there a particular trait that makes a diplomacy player really good at playing Italy, would you say?
You're going to have to get a feel for how the game is going to go from very little information. And then you're going to have to look at those spring 1901 moves, not just the ones around Italy, but the one like, what was there a bounce in Sweden? That's important.
It is, yes.
Did Russia send Moscow north, or did it go to Ukraine? Was there a bounce in Galicia? You know, did Turkey go to Armenia? Was there a bounce in Burgundy? All these things that are a long way away from you are things that you have to pay attention to and you have to be aware of, because they give you clues as to what's going on elsewhere in the board and who's the odd person out in the West and how well are Russia and Turkey likely to work together. You know, is this all a front or is it genuine?
Right.
Is Russia more interested in playing in the north than in the south? That could be a good thing. Yes.
Sounds like you're a sleuth, is Italy.
You really do have to be, to a great extent. I mean, because it's true for every country to an extent that what's happening elsewhere on the board is very important, and those relationships are very important. But you haven't got as much first-hand information as Italy, I don't think.
Right. Oh, okay. I wonder then, if you're approached early in the game for a DMZ in Tyrolia by either Germany or Austria, how do you handle that as a player who likes to go to Tyrolia?
I mean, I've got options there. I can go to Trieste, I can go to Tyrolia, I can go to Piedmont, I can even hold. I don't particularly like the hold. I like to move somewhere because otherwise you've got two armies basically doing nothing. So I'm not averse to a DMZ in Tyrolia. I'm not likely to agree to it right from the start. If someone comes to me very early on and asks me for a DMZ, I would probably sort of say, I need to find out more information first. I need to figure out what Austria is doing and how they feel about it, or if it's Germany, you know, how do they feel about it? That sort of thing first.
That makes sense.
In that kind of situation, I would always make a point of saying, you know, I will get back to you and I will tell you what I've decided, but I can't tell you right now. And then I would make sure that I followed through on that.
That's fair. To establish trust.
Yeah, exactly. There's no point in annoying someone just
right
for
off
nothing.
The hop.
Right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Probably I would either say, you know, yes, okay, I'm okay with the DMZ and I would follow through with it. Or I would say, you know, no, I'm going to go to Tyrolia, and if you don't want me there, you're going to have to bounce me.
Nice. Yeah, just to let them know openly, and then
exactly.
You can just say this is an insurance policy for all of us.
Yeah, and then that sort of 2% of the time I say yes, I'm fine with a DMZ, and then I go there anyway because you know.
Like the English Channel when the English popped there against the French will.
Very much the same. Yeah, very much the same.
So in terms of meta strategies, would you suggest using any of these? I mean, things like reminding people how weak Italy is and how unlikely it is for you to succeed. Or do you ever use a sort of look small approach by splitting your units and sending half, to the east and half to the west? And do you find these approaches work, or do these backfire?
I definitely have split my units east and west in the past. And I think that can work. You've got to be very, very strong on the diplomatic front. You've got to be able to utilize other people's units in that case, so that you haven't just got a strength of 2 in the west and 2 in the east. You've actually got 2 plus, you know, all the English and all the Germans. So that's more like 8, you know, so that's fine.
That's right. Yeah.
Actually, one of the things you can do, talking of sort of slightly indirect things, bear in mind that Tunis is very hard for anyone else other than you to take.
That's
so
right.
You don't have to actually take that one in 1901.
Oh, okay.
You can sort of keep that in your back pocket. Maybe you start by taking just Trieste, or maybe you take Trieste in Greece in 1901, and you leave Tunis till later, because that does have that sort of ties in with a sort of looking smaller than you actually are. As long as you've got control over Tunis, you don't actually need to own it right now, because you can pick that up later. So then you might be in this situation where, yes, you're on the supply center chart, you're only on 5, but you've got Tunis sat there waiting for you. So really you're on 6. So you might be sort of leading the board with 6, but instead you're not the leader. You can say, oh, look at Germany. Germany's out there on 6 and I'm here only on 5. And hope nobody notices that, but you haven't picked up Tunis.
Yeah. Oh, that's a clever ploy. I like it. So I guess if we consider all of the strategies and tips you've offered today, I'd like to circle back for a moment to your World Championship win. Can you tell me of all these ideas for the people listening, which one was the most important that helped you win it all? And I guess this is just bringing together, if there's one huge takeaway from this video, what should people be thinking?
So in that game, I think I did 2 things that were very important. I mean, that was more or less a Lepanto start, I believe. We certainly... Turkey was fairly weak fairly early on, but I think Turkey went down to 2, and then I think that was about the point maybe where I stabbed Austria. I don't have a good memory for the board, but there was definitely a factor of make sure that I don't have to worry about the Mediterranean. In the West, I had my peace treaty with France that we would both leave each other alone for a long time, and that held pretty well up until the mid-game. And in the East, we hit Turkey hard enough that he wasn't a factor in the Mediterranean. And then that gave me the freedom to control all those dots that are next to the Mediterranean. And then I was able to attack Austria without worrying about Turkey getting the gains. Also talking to Russia and talking to Turkey. Russia was Andrew Goff, and he was very set on ordering the fleet to the Black Sea every single turn.
Right.
And that worked great for me, because that basically told me, okay, I don't have to worry about this RT alliance, because
that's right.
As long as he keeps ordering that fleet to the Black Sea, even if he's telling Turkey about it, it sort of prevents them from working too closely together, and it's going to lead to a certain amount of distrust between them. So yeah, I would say those 3 factors were all significant.
That's very good. So if anyone watching this video has other ideas to add to the conversation, please put them down in the comments. And have we covered everything we need to know about Italy? Are there any final thoughts or any advice for new players, Chris?
Yeah, I would just reiterate, pick a direction, figure out where that 5th dot is, be decisive. And sometimes it won't work. That's okay. You go for it anyway, and sometimes you end up out, but that's all right. It's worth the gamble.
I agree 100%. Thanks so much for taking the time to share your strategies and your thoughts with us today. And you've proven to us that it's possible to win at a high level with Italy. So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. It's been a lot of fun.
If our viewers can help me get this video up to 75 likes, I'll get to work on the next nation. If you got value from this conversation, please consider subscribing to our channel so you'll get to see all of our other diplomacy content. Come again when you can stay a little longer.